Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by PlayPicks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy on the East Coast, Nate Weitzer. We are pumped to get into the Western Conference Finals. They are here, the Suns and the Clippers, after the Clips wrote a 39-point outburst from Terrence Mann, the young gun putting on a show. As Nate will tell you, he's from Lowell, Mass, representing well. We're looking to see if he can take that into the Western Conference Finals here. Jump into all of that. If you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings and NBA playoff promos available in your area. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page. Jump in the comments. Let us know who you guys got in this series. We're going to talk some series odds and game one. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, for the series right now, the Suns are minus 185, the Clippers plus 150. You can get plus 350 on the Suns in 7. That's apparently the most likely scenario, according to books. The least likely being a Clippers sweep. And then we're looking at Suns in 6 plus 450. I mean, it really just comes down to when Chris Paul is going to come back. As it stands right now, we don't think he's going to play in game one. So right now, the Clippers are plus 4, given that circumstance, plus 155 on the money line. And the total is 221.5. So just looking at the season series, I think it's a bigger deal for the Clippers missing Kawhi Leonard, who probably almost certainly is not going to return in the series, than the Suns knowing they might have to go the first 2, maybe 3 games without CP3. Phoenix won the last meeting, 109-101, because Kawhi was not out there. The Clippers won the previous 2. Paul George having some very nice games against this Phoenix defense. But the key for me here is not about Paul George or Devin Booker having individual explosions. It's about team scheme and just that the Clippers are being a bit overvalued because of how they were able to scheme Utah. The Jazz's refusal to get Rudy Gobert off the floor cost them the game, cost them a 25-point lead. Because the Clippers were able to knife into the paint, draw help, hit threes. The Suns did not allow much of that at all, and they do not have to take DeAndre Ayton off the floor. He's a versatile defender. They were 3rd in three-point defense on the season. And in these playoffs, they're allowing a league low 100.8 points per game at home and doing a great job defending the three-point line at home. 32%, in fact, the opposition's shooting. And the Clippers, I mean, both these teams tend to play at a very slow pace, 24th and 28th during the regular season. The Clippers playing at the 4th slowest pace on the road, so even slower in these playoffs. And they're only allowing 107.8 points per game on the road this season. It's a lot of numbers, but essentially what I'm thinking is this is going to be a slow-paced game. The Clippers are not going to find it as easy to generate those open looks. I think it's going to be more low-scoring than we expect, so under 221. And I actually like the Suns, despite the absence of Chris Paul, to continue their incredible surge, ride that momentum from their crowd, and pull out a game one win.
Yeah, it's interesting that both these teams are coming off really solid offensive performances in their last series, and you would have expected a little bit better 3-point D from Utah, who was obviously, really prone to shooting the three, but they were also really good at defending it during the regular season. Was not the case in this series against the Clips, as you mentioned, with them being able to drive and kick, and with that small ball lineup that they're now definitely going to continue to use throughout the playoffs. I mean, if they use it against Rudy Gobert, they're certainly going to be using it against DeAndre Ayton in terms of spreading those guys out, with Marcus Morris playing the 5 in that instance. I think interesting also is that it's going to be a lot of the opposite in this series, to your point. The Suns scored on an awful Nuggets defense. And as we mentioned, Utah failed to cover the 3-point line in those last 2 or 3 games that they lost, letting the Clips take that series in 6. So, I don't know who. It's a very interesting question. Who is, who is affected more by their star being out right now? I would say, to your point, because of the way that the Suns defend the 3, it's got to be, without Kawhi, you don't have someone just like Paul George. You can say, go get a bucket. With Paul George being the only one right now that can do that on his own. I do think you'll be able to see the team defense and guys like Miles Bridges and Campaign and other solid wing defenders for Phoenix, obviously Jay Crowder in there, handle guys like Reggie Jackson and even Terrence Mann a lot better than the defenders of Utah were able to do in that single coverage that they were trying to present. And then it's going to come down to, I do think Devin Booker is something to target here with CP3 out, especially in this game one. I really like his assists. You look at what he does when CP3 sits, specifically in the regular season, averaged 8 assists a game when CP3 was out, and add 36 points and 5 boards to those numbers as well. So super impressive and capable of being the ball handler as well as the scorer when CP3 is out. But still, to your point, this is going to be a slower paced game with, the efficiencies on each team being crucial. And I do think that Phoenix, even without CP3, is going to be just as adept at handling the half court offense with a 6'7" Devin Booker, scoring and passing and knifing through this defense that isn't going to have a rim protector. No, even if they do play Zubac, which I don't expect him to see too many minutes anyway. So I think, I'm really liking under for the Clippers 109.5 specifically. I think tired legs. I don't think we're going to see 30 to 39 points from Terrence Mann in this one. I do think the youngster is capable of putting up numbers, but he's going to regress back to his around 10 to 13 points a game when Kawhi is sitting that he's averaging in these playoffs. So I would look at Book's assists for sure. Those are my top two, and then under 109.5 for the Clips total.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Phoenix has done during that 7-game win streak in the playoffs, 99 defensive rating, just obviously containing a really impressive Denver Nuggets offense led by the MVP. I think that they can figure things out. No knock on Quinn Snyder, but I think Monty Williams will have things in his bag to counter what the Clippers are doing in terms of getting those open shots. And I mean, CP3, when he was out, the offense really dipped. I mean, not out, but he was really hobbled by that shoulder injury in the first 3 against the Lakers. Suns scored 99, 102, and 95. All 3 games went under. And I mean, with him out, their offense is definitely going to hurt, but their defense, not necessarily as much. I mean, CP3 at 36 years old, he does some leadership things, some orchestrating, but he's not going to be the guy to step in and stop Reggie Jackson. That might be Campaign, his old teammate back in OKC at one point. And Etuan Moore is a guy we might not have heard from recently, but a veteran presence that honestly, I mean, the Suns are getting a lot of publicity for not having any playoff experience. He has a little bit. I think he will be reliable. And I think with Jay Crowder still setting that tone, they won't be overwhelmed by this moment. And I mean, you look at the Clippers, like how much playoff experience do they really have? This is obviously their first time in the Western Conference Finals. And I think it's just there to an extent, less momentum and more just, we're here now. And maybe we can drop a game in Phoenix. We know we've come back from 2-0 twice. I don't see the urgency for them in game one, whereas the Suns on all that extra rest, I think they can cover.
Yep, and that's a good starting point to build off of a few bets that you can make around this series in general. So I do agree that in game one specifically, the lack of rest and really a huge sort of come down after a giant game 6 for the Clips will lead to the Suns having because of their bench scoring. And obviously that comes from guys that are now not going to necessarily be on the bench or considered bench scoring like Terrence Mann or Marcus Morris, where they, but their depth has been a story all season as they were 4th in the league in bench scoring. And they obviously leaned on guys when PG or Kawhi sat out for their rest during the regular season. So I think with that, I do like game one, but the absence of CP3 does level things enough that I think between games 2 and 3, you're definitely going to see a Clippers win in there. And then, it'll be a pretty pivotal game 4 either way. And at that point, I would say Suns in 6 feels really good to what you mentioned at plus 450 because of the fact that I think we can feel really good about at least a game 2, 3, or say 5 win from the Clippers. I do think they have it in them if there's no CP3. And I think you have to expect him to be out for at least 2 to 3 games. And then we're going to actually have to monitor how does he come back from COVID because he has it, right? It wasn't just that he was around people who had it or any of that type of thing. He was positive with it. So he needs to get over it.
I don't think he has symptoms necessarily being vaccinated, but the issue is going to be chemistry, right? He hasn't been allowed to practice with the team.
True.
So there is some of that in terms of coming back, but I don't think he's really sick.
Okay, and that's huge. That's huge. But I think to your point, by the time that this airs, we'll know a little bit more from the Suns, and then be able to make a little bit more of some of those predictions around what's going to happen in the rest of this series, because obviously he is just so crucial to the Suns. I think the Suns' really ability to blow this series out. If he was healthy and playing, I think you would feel really good about their ability to score, because like you said, we already feel great about their defense. Ayton showed that he can muscle with guys and hustle enough to stay on the floor, and which is going to be different for what the Clips have seen so far in these playoffs. So I'm would feel really good about the Suns either way. That's why I feel even better about maybe putting some money on some really nice juicy odds, like we said, for them to win in 6, 7, or even 5. But at any rate, we'll continue to follow this situation, specifically CP3's health, and the rest of what's happening in these Western Conference Finals. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page, y'all. Jump in the comments. Let us know what you think about the series in general and that game one. We'll be back with another video for you as these playoffs roll on. And until then, happy betting.